Hey guys, nice to talk with you. I'd like to have you introduce yourselves just one by one here. So start with Kirill.
Yep, my name is Kirill from Huntsmen. I play guitar.
I'm Chris from Huntsmen. I play guitar, sing, and write words and such.
I'm Mark. I play bass, I sing, and that's about it.
Good enough.
Yeah.
It'll do.
All right, so you guys just announced your next full-length album, Mandala of Fear, and you just released your first single, Ride Out. So how has the reception to that been so far?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So far so good. We had Daniel P. Carter on BBC Radio 1 rock show play it, which was cool to hear that from across the pond. It was kind of like that thing you do, in that the movie scene where they hear themselves on the radio and they're running through the streets and shit. It was kind of like that on the inside. My mom was like texting me the whole time. She's like, "This song is very cool," like talking about polyphia or whatever. So that was awesome. People seem to be really digging it. I like when people like draw comparisons to bands like progressive bands that I've listened to for a long time, like Yes, King Crimson, and stuff like that. And my brother, his friends were saying, like, dude, it was like Crosby, Stills, and Nashtadon. And I was like, that's exactly what we're going for. So I think so far so good, right?
Nashtadon. Yeah, I think my favorite thing is just that it's like doesn't sound like anything else on the record. Yeah. So I'm just like,
Psych!
yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess definitely I would say that it takes on more progressive edge, and although it's not the same as the rest of the record, I'd say overall, like, there has been a shift, I think, from American Scrap. So was that like a natural evolution or like more like an intentional change?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Yeah, I think like the subject matter of the records dictates a lot like how it ends up feeling. American Scrap was pretty like, I don't know, like pretty like backwards looking, or like meant to kind of almost like looking at something through like a foggy glass or something. But this one's kind of like meant to be like a lot more immediate, or like in the middle of like all this action that's happening, and it's basically like a war story. And there's just all kinds of like pandemonium and insane shit. So it was like the production's like way more present and clear and kind of like in your face. And we've got, I guess, like elements that are like were pretty like typical for us. But then there are going to be like a lot of parts of the record that are just like way heavier and creepier and deeper and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and I also say that even since like your first EP, post-war, there's always been kind of like a unique Huntsman identity to songs. Like, don't really sound like other bands, What kind of goes into like your songwriting? Like, what makes a song feel like Huntsman? I feel like you could answer this.
Yeah. For Huntsman, I mean, Chris is the main lyricist, obviously, and is a big part of writing everything. Usually it's Chris has a ton of stories and a lot of different riffs and guitar things that he records on his cell phone, which he always mentions. He's just basically listening through. I think we talked about it the other night, where you just lay in bed listening to a whole bunch of songs before you go to bed to relax, which is very stressful to me because I wouldn't relax. But so once Chris brings that over to us, we all listen to it. He plays it for us, and we all try to figure out where it goes. And usually we're very story based, as every single album has been. We talk about a lot of imagery before we really nail a song down, which is, there's a lot of artists in this band, and we try to do everything ourselves. So for us, it's very important to actually have a vision of some sort, rather than just be like, yeah, let's play a couple of riffs and see what happens. And it's like, well, that's cool. So maybe we could write a song, but then it's like it makes no sense as a whole. So that's why a lot of the times we have so much material, and like this new album with a double LP. But yeah, it's collaborative, but we all try to make sure we see where we're going, and we all talk about it very extensively whenever we try to write a song or an album. So that.
What's some of the imagery then when it'll like creating this, I guess?
You got this, man.
All right. Yeah. So this one, like, I don't know. I kind of want to be careful to like not like just shove the like story like as a literal story in everybody's face, but like definitely we kind of work to something like we like write against something that we like have in mind in common and everything, and like what we think of is basically like a desert war. And like so there's just like a lot of the story that just transpires like out in the middle of like some desert, and it's kind of like I like to like for it to not be clear whether it's like in one of the like conflict regions in like the like Middle East or like in the U.S. Like in some sort of like really bad times near future kind of thing. So there's definitely like I know there's like a lot of elemental stuff about this record. Like there's a lot about like sand and sky and sea and like this sort of like kind of like little like cycle of like elements that sort of keep like referencing back to each other. And so like that kind of like ended up getting tied to the whole like Mandala thing, and like I don't know, there's just like a lot of like layers of bullshit that we like operate against. But yeah, it's and it's like a big part of it is because like I mean, pretty much as long as like I can remember, like we've been caught up in like desert wars, and it's this like weird like backdrop for our lives that is just always happening, and they're just like people, for our generation, and it gets like so backburnered and like swept under the rug, and it's so remote like what these people are actually like suffering through on all sides, and so it just seemed to make sense to like do something like over there. Like it feels like an American story for us, even if it doesn't necessarily take place here potentially. So
there's also the first. So when Chris, Kirill, and I were in a band before all of this, and when we decided to make a complete change in the sound and everything, one of the first things that Chris and I talked about initially, it was after seeing, I think it was after seeing like Chelsea Wolfe, and like the whole aesthetic, and I think it was right after she did the album Apocalypsis, and the idea of like just kind of writing music for that sort of landscape was very fascinating to me, because I grew up listening, like watching, like I was like 3 years old when I saw the original Night of the Living Dead, and I've just ever since been hooked with that sort of like dystopian future, or sort of post-apocalypse, or even like apocalypse, like apocalyptic setting. And so writing like a soundtrack to that's kind of how like things happen. And at first we were like, well, let's not do an overt like an actual story. Let's make it more like a theme and a choose your own adventure sort of thing. And then by the time we got to American Scrap, we wrote it Chris did the writing of the lyrics and stuff and the general imagery. We wanted to kind of stick to that whole idea of letting the listener choose their own adventure. And then I was like, one night I was just up and I was like, well, I've chosen my own adventure, and I sent an email to the whole band like, this is what I think, this is what the album communicates to me, and like these characters. And like then after the album was released, like he started like thinking about the next record, which is now Mandala Fear. And he was like, hey, like, like we took this character, like the last president from American Scrap, and like, like her mother is like, the soldier from the Barons, and it's just like, and then like telling that person's story, like how it like leads up to the apocalypse and stuff, and like now it's like this actual story with a fucking comic book and stuff. So it's really fun. I personally like, it's much more enjoyable for me to perform that and to write that, because I get into that headspace and I start thinking like about those sort of images and stuff, and it just kind of makes it like I'm playing basically I get to play a soundtrack to a movie that I'm watching in my head. So it's much more entertaining for me, at least. So I guess it's a selfish endeavor.
Awesome. Yeah, so the album title to me kind of like felt like a supernatural thing. Is it not then? Is this kind of like a metaphor or something, or how does that work, I guess?
You got it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I want to get pretty like woo here, but the way that I look at writing is that like you kind of make decisions, and it's actually sometimes best if you don't know why you're making the decision at the time, because like I just end up like later on going like, oh shit, that's why I did that, and then it's like instant therapy, But yeah, I don't know, like for some reason, like just the phrase like Mandala Fear like kind of was just in my head when I was starting to like assemble the kind of the clips of riffs of like that I'd just been like making over time, and the story sort of became apparent. But like it's like to us, it ends up sort of being the story about like surviving trauma under like repeated trauma under like really extreme circumstances. And like a characteristic of a mandala is that it's this intricate thing that you just build over time, and it's so invested, and it's so, it's like just so like, it's like an edifice of like a construct. But at the end, you're supposed to like clear it away and symbolically like release like everything that you had, like all the attachment that you had put into it. And for some reason, that just like ended up like kind of like working out as a parallel and like a metaphor, like overlying this sort of like this like idea of like trauma and like how like we like and its interaction with fear and dread, like as a result of that, and like just like cycles of life of like trying to approach that, break it down, like figure out how to live again, things like that. And so it's like a little bit abstract, but that's kind of the gist. I don't know if that answers the question for you.
It does. That's cooler than I thought. Like, I mean, like that seems, yeah.
I thought you guys were just fucking chugging riffs the whole time, chugging beers.
I have zero problems with that either, but yeah. Yeah, so I think one of the things that I guess changed on this album was you had a new member, Amy, and I guess that kind of led to, or it helps with the theme of the album too. So how has that changed like your songwriting process, if at all, I guess?
Yeah,
sure. She's made it very clear that she's drawn a big interest in the characters since since American Scrap, and the character of this particular record, she definitely like latched onto. And I don't like speaking for her, but unfortunately she's sick. But I don't think it's really changed much at all. I mean, like her presence was just so natural in there, and it was just a matter of like, making sure that she's communicating and expressing herself in the way that she best feels fit. But a lot of the I guess these characters in the stories we've been weaving have been like just women, like strong women, and I guess it kind of parallels back to the women in our lives, like growing up and like drawing inspiration from them and stuff. So having like this awesome woman be able to like communicate that as well with the rest of the world, it's just been a natural progression. So I haven't felt any change personally. It's just a matter of like having like this other voice in the band and just making sure like that gets like it's I guess backpedaling a little bit, it has changed in the way that I play, meaning like I'm not always playing really aggressively. I want to make sure that all of the voices of the band, like I guess I started listening more to the rest of the band, which is great. It's a great thing. So in a positive way.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'll add is like Amy's sort of like joining the band like as a full-time member, kind of like just the timing of it. She actually didn't end up like getting to do a lot of writing towards Mandala. It was like kind of like a similar thing to like American Scrap, where it was like, hey, it would make a lot of sense and be awesome if you sang on this. So actually, I think that like probably whatever comes next will involve more of that. And like she just gets such an awesome voice that I definitely like see us just trying to like lean into that in certain ways. And like I don't know, like vocal harmonies are a big thing for us. So figuring out just how to like do more weird, interesting stuff with more and different voices.
Awesome. So you guys just spent, I think it was 15 days in the studio with Sanford Parker to record this. And I'm hearing now it was all analog too. So how was that experience?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So the analog part is for American Scrap. This album wasn't analog. Yeah. So the analog one we recorded in here in Treehouse. No, you're good, man.
Don't ever fucking do it again.
No, it was awesome. I think. As a producer, he's somebody that we've never been in a room with. So, it shouldn't be negative, but I don't think it is. But he's willing to tell you his opinion, which is awesome, because a lot of the times we have certain issues of like, we hear our own songs 10,000 times. So we're going to keep playing our songs the way that we're playing our songs, right? But then going into a studio and having somebody there for 15 days, Chris was there for 15 days as well, straight. So be like, hey, you're bending through these notes, which I had an issue with, which I learned how to play guitar better because of, and just giving us ideas and telling us like, no, this sounds like shit. Like, all in all, like if you don't tell us that like we're gonna come out with an album, then also it's like, all right, we're happy with it, but it's like there's gonna be always something we're gonna be a little bummed out about. I don't know, like it was really fucking cool to be in a studio with him and him actually giving us opinions and giving us a bit of direction, yet keeping it to what we are, you know. And this album being not all analog was like, all right, we're going to like the digital world a little bit here, but that was fucking cool. Like throughout the record, you could actually hear the album at times, like mixed in certain ways of how the song feels. Like as the songs progress and the feel of the album progresses, you could kind of hear the drums changing a little bit, or the guitar sounding less like metalish or whatever the fuck else you want to call it. Which is cool because we would have just recorded the album and like, all right, this is fucking cool. All right, we're done. 80 minutes worth of material. Here we go. And so it was awesome having him around there. Yeah.
You guys want to add anything? Or?
Sure. Yeah. Sanford is great. He's a very direct person, and you know, just to echo what Kirill said, having someone just to say that sounds like shit. It's so refreshing because sometimes you go into recording situations and some musicians are very well. I mean, the nature of most artists very, very sensitive, and having like there's a degree of like bedside manner in a way that I found that a lot of recording engineers sort of maintain, just so they don't offend the person and like disrupt the vibe and stuff. But you know, you also have to read the room a bit, and Sanford's like really, really good at that. And when you know, I have utmost respect for a lot of the stuff that he has recorded, so I know that he's able to getting results and stuff, and like interacting with him like outside of the recording side of things. Like I know, like I kind of knew what we were getting into, and it was awesome, and you know, it was fun. He's a very funny dude, and that's so important. Like when you're like, there's like little moments where we're like riffing around and like just joking around with each other in the studio, and like I do this thing every time we do a recording session. I'll do this thing where it's my turn to sing, and I'll just like do something really silly and stupid, and he just latched onto it and like, you know, recorded it and then put it in a loop and everything, and just like we're laughing our asses off, and it breaks the tension, and it makes that 15 days in a row much more enjoyable and like memorable in a good way and stuff. So he was really good about that as well. Bear Gazaldo, who works here as well, is also another one of those types. He's really good at that. In fact, watching him mix American Scrap on the live on the tape machine was so fucking cool. So like this whole experience going from fully analog and like doing that exercise and like having to be as precise as possible, and then going into this digital where like we want to make sure everything is pristine and sounds really good. Both of those guys were really good about getting the best performance out of us as possible, and while keeping it lighthearted and fun and entertaining. So that was really awesome.
Yeah, like one final note is like I think like a lot of Sanford's natural leanings for like stuff he works on is like towards like industrial. And when we were originally like writing Mandala Fear, like we kind of for whatever reason had like a more like an American Scrap vibe of like kind of like you know, like heavy 70s kind of rock in terms of like the tones. And when Sanford mixed it, like a lot of the stuff was like harsher in a good way. Like it had this really like stark, creepy feeling to it, where like all of our gear was dialed into basically like warm 70s crunchy shit, and he just like made it like sound really spooky and chilly, and yeah, so we're really happy with that.
Cool. All right, so you guys are doing a beer collaboration with Metal Monkey Brewing, which is a really great place. Can you tell me about the collaboration process and why you went with the Saison?
No, Metal Monkey, the great dudes. So the first time we met like them was out at the Chemist show, I think, right at Reggie's some time ago. So you know, we were courting each other for a little while there, you know, chatting away with their owners and such. And you know, I told them that I'm a huge beer fan, and I would really love to do something with them. Because funny enough, probably maybe a year prior to that, I went out to there because I have a tendency to go to different breweries and just check them out. So I drove out of my way out to Romeoville, and I was like, oh, there's a place called Metal Monkey. And so I went in there and had a beers, and I was like, oh, these are fucking delicious. Then I went to the bathroom And then on the wall there was either a sticker or somebody engraved, I forget exactly what it was, and it said Chemist. And I was like, fuck. These dudes like legitimately either have metal shows here or people are just really obsessed with metal. So I started talking to them, and then from there nothing happened. And then the Chemist show happened, so on and so forth. And so I got in contact with them and we chatted for a while, and hopefully, we will be coming out with the beer. What is it? The first week of, what is it, March? Yeah, exactly. So it'll be within that week. I forget exactly which date it is, but so it's going to be what was it? It was a saison, I believe it was. So that'll be exciting. So it honestly organically came through because just they loved our music, and I really love beer, and I liked their beer quite a bit as well, especially being like, oh shit, it's like a full circle thing of like, I remember going there, got in contact with no one, and then we played Chemist, and then we met them, and then here we are, and now we have a beer with them. In addition to them, previously we've done mead. I'm not sure if you guys saw that from Birmingham Meadery, and yes, and again, full circle thing, because the Meadery, Birmingham, and Metal Monkey were out at the Decibel Fest out in LA. They met each other, and then I got a text message from Jason, the owner of Metal Monkey. He's like, "Oh man, JR," and says hi to you and shit like that. So I was just like, damn, all the people we're collaborating with are like, love each other, are starting to meet each other, and it's like, we're really huge on collaborating with people that have passion and like really want to do good. When no one's charging anyone money or anything like that. We just do this out of the kindness of our own heart, and that's one of the biggest things for us. Like we don't want to take advantage of anyone. Hopefully, they're not taking advantage of us, right? But yeah, right, exactly. And it's just like it's one of those things. Like hopefully, everyone that we work with loves their art, and that's the same thing goes for all our artwork. Ray does most of our artwork because he's a wonderful artist, and it's just anyone we collaborate, we want to make sure they love what they're doing and are passionate about it. Yeah.
Nice.
The light slays and pours and breaks into my eyes. Dark wars molting gold across the sand. The iron vultures screaming murder overhead. Fly like a knife into a dry land.
You guys have a good crop of shows coming up, including one with the legendary Ohm. So are you looking to hit the road more often?
So throughout March, right after that show, we do have several shows basically every weekend through March. With that, so we're pretty selective with what we can and can't do or try to do. So for us, it's sometimes difficult, but other times we try to take on as much as we can within limitations. So obviously we have the shows in March, every single weekend in March. We're going to be going out with our buddies from Snow Burial for several of those shows, for probably I think 5 of those shows or so like that. One of them going to be a special show actually the day after the Ohm show in Louisville, Kentucky at Mag Bar, which is actually going to be a burlesque / metal show. So that'll be a lot of fun, and a lot of the proceeds are going to, what was the name of the charity? The Louisville Youth Group as well. A lot of the proceeds will be going towards that as well. So that's going to be real fun. After March, we are going out to the UK because we are going to be playing Desert Fest out there as well. So we'll be doing that. We'll be coming back, and a couple of other things that are sprinkled out that we can't talk about yet at all about. But yeah, we are smart. We try to be very smart and very precise about our shows because we're not going to go out somewhere if no one's going to ever show up, right? So it's one of those things of if the opportunity arises, we talk about it pretty lengthily and make sure that, okay, does this fit within our schedule? Does this work for us? But yeah, I think this year is definitely, you're going to see us out and about playing quite a few shows, much more than we have in previous years, especially with hopefully what we have coming up. So.
All right. So this has been Huntsmen with Invisible Oranges. Their next album, Mandala of Fear, releases March 13th. Thanks so much.